Was that you, David?
Yes, it was.
We were just waiting a few minutes because our Toastmaster has not arrived, but we will get it going and get started anyways.
All right.
Okay.
The Nest has just texted she's running late too, but she'll join.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. My name is Elvis Lopez, and I will be filling in as a Sergeant at Arms today. Welcome to Queen City Toastmasters, the oldest Toastmasters club in Charlotte. Before we start with the meeting, I would like to give you some introductions and a couple of things, information about this place. We will be using this mic. You don't see that it is projecting to any of the speakers, but it is for our folks that are joining us online. This is a hybrid meeting. And for those who are here, when we are speaking, we would like to project so that the ones that are in the back can also hear us. Our bathrooms are, for those who are here the first time, our bathrooms are in the back. Either of those two doors will take you to either the men or the ladies' room, and there's another one in the back. I would like to start by introducing our presiding officer. Please help me welcome Dr. Eric Laxe.
Thank you, Elvis. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Queen City Toastmasters. It's great that we have a lot of people here tonight. Had to scrounge around and get some extra chairs. If you've never been to a Toastmasters meeting, we are excited you're here with us tonight. Part of what you'll see are people coming up here, taking on different roles. They'll be introduced to you throughout the meeting. They'll explain their roles. And people who come up and do roles are all different members of our club. So we rotate through different roles that you see on the agenda, which is basically how we all learn how to run meetings and get up and speak in front of people. One of the things we always do before each meeting is we give our guests an opportunity to just introduce themselves. Walk around the room. Don't be afraid of the microphone. And all you need to do is let us know your name and how you found us or anything else you want to share before we get started. This microphone is only for people who are online. So it confuses everybody because we don't hear anything coming from the speakers, but it doesn't work in the room here. So I'm going to walk around the room starting over here. And if you just stand up for a sec, just tell us your name and how you found us and anything else you want to share.
Good evening. I'm Greg Rupert. I found this Toastmasters by researching them online, and I'm looking forward to observing and seeing how a Toastmasters run and how you guys public speak. So looking forward to learning some today.
Hey everybody, my name's Josh Ellenberg. I found you guys because I was looking for Charlotte Toastmasters and there's a couple different ones, but this seemed to be the most active and organized online. So you guys are awesome already off the bat. Looking forward to joining you.
I'm Andrew Spoyer. I'm a student at UNC Charlotte. I actually found it through one of our professors has an assignment where we have to attend a Toastmasters. So we all just looked through the website and this is the one that seemed the biggest fit. So.
And my name's Chris Shipman. This is my second time here. Just looking through Charlotte Toastmasters, and again, like who? Josh said, just seemed to be the most active one. So wanted to give it another try.
So far, so good. Okay, I'll come over here to Alex.
My name is Alex Pike. I just moved here from Canada, so this is my first meeting today. And I was referred to this from my roommate Mark. He had many good things to say, so I'm excited to join it.
That makes 3 of us Canadians so far. I don't know if anybody else is from Canada, but feel free to speak up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Natalia. This is my 3rd time in here, and I'm challenging myself to do something that scares me, and speaking in public scary to me. So I'm trying to get more comfortable with this and getting my thoughts together and speak on impromptu topics, getting better at this. And I got involved with this through this guy on the screen, David, right there. Hi, David. We have attended another group together, and I knew that David leads this Toastmasters, so I came here to give it a shot.
Thank you. I'm going to come right around here.
Hey, my name's Tom Williams. I recently gave a presentation for a job, and my manager told me that I needed to be speaking. So I looked this up online, and it's my first time here.
Hi, I'm Shannon, longtime listener, first time caller, but I'm not. I'm an old Toastmaster, but I'm a visitor to this club. This is a fantastic club. For those visitors who are here today, you are in for a treat. And just throwing it out there to the Toastmaster, I always have a hip pocket speech ready to go.
Thank you, Shannon. You have done an outstanding job with that in the past. And do you want to just introduce yourself? Great, thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is, Keandra. I think this is my 3rd time here. Tried to come in last week, but the weather was insane, so I was too scared to drive over here. But just like everyone else, just trying to get better with public speaking and communication. So thank you for having me.
You are all off to a fantastic start. That was really well done. One of the things that we have at each of our meetings is one of the roles is called Toastmaster of the Day. And the Toastmaster of the Day gets to pick a theme and talk a little bit throughout the meeting about their theme. And also when we do other aspects of the meeting, such as table topics, sometimes that's connected to the theme of the meeting. And so it's usually a big step in roles when somebody goes from doing some of the other things to being Toastmaster of the Day for the first time. And that is the case with our Toastmaster today. She has been in our club for maybe 6 months or so. She has done an outstanding job with all of her other roles. And I know we will really enjoy having her be the one to run our meeting. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to our Toastmaster of the Day, Yazmeen Rigaud.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the warm welcome. Right. So vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen while knowing you have no control of the outcome. My name's Yazmeen Rigaud, and I'm going to be the Toastmaster of the Day. So welcome, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. The quote that I just gave was spoken by Brene Brown at her 2010 TED Talk called Shame, Vulnerability, and Leadership. With that being said, our theme of the day is the strength in vulnerability. The reason that vulnerability is just so imperative to growth, because without it, we really aren't able to create those deep, meaningful connections. Once other people know your fears, your hopes, your dreams, it really just creates that open space and that comfortability for them to also share that as well. I'll expand more on key points as to why this is so important later. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our inspirational thought master for the day, Nick Foster.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Queen City. How are you doing tonight? In keeping with tonight's theme of vulnerability being strength, I'm going to expose a weakness that I have been working on, and as a 45-year-old man, I should have worked on many years ago. And that lesson is goal setting. As I realize where I have gotten in life, I don't really know how I got here. This place was not something I saw, but I am now find myself with a life, a family, and a career asking, where do we go next? Oh. So I'm beginning to practice this goal setting, and I've learned as much as we're taught to be selfless and share, it is important to want. You need to want something in life and to be passionate about it. And when it comes to anything that you're learning, I've decided to start simple. Not easy, but simple. So one of my first goals that I'm setting to be clear, measurable, and a little bit scary is just simply for my company step challenge in October. And I've set a goal for myself of 1 million steps in 1 month. And if you break that down, 250,000 steps a week, about 30,000 steps a day. So roughly about a half marathon of walking every day. That's a lot. But I begin speaking it into reality, telling you guys here tonight. I've talked to my coworkers about it. I've talked to my friends about it, starting to plan activities that, hey, we're going to get together this Sunday and go walk 10 miles. Told my boss, Friday afternoons, I'm taking PTO all of October on Friday afternoon, and I'm going to be walking. I am making the space for that goal to happen. And that's what we have to do. The importance of the goals is that we have to begin to prioritize. If this is something that is important to me, something I want, how do I make the space in my day to make that happen? So I ask all of you, look ahead, find something that you want, something that may be a little bit scary, make the plan and go for it.
Thank you, Toastmaster Nick. All right, so next in our group of helpers is everyone's favorite person during speeches, our grammarian. The role is going to be performed by Jeff Norris. So please join me in welcoming Toastmaster Jeff.
Thank you very much. Hopefully you guys don't hate me tonight. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. My name is Jeff, and I will be your grammarian tonight. If you're unaware of the position, I will be tracking all of your filler words. Those include like, and so. Also a part of my role is to introduce to you the word of the day. So going along with the theme, your word is fortitude. Now, fortitude means to have courage in times of adversity. So to use that in a sentence, while you guys come up tonight to give your speeches, you should overcome your fear of public speaking and use your mental fortitude to get you over it. I challenge all of you to use fortitude in your speeches tonight, and let's see what you guys can do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeff. And next, I will introduce our timer, Toastmaster Marcelo.
Good evening. How we doing tonight? How we feeling? We got a lot of people in here tonight. Can I get some energy, please? Thank you. Before I go through the timer roll, I want everybody to just, let's do a breath real quick. I don't know why I get so anxious when I do the timer roll for some reason. So let's just close our eyes, tap into our body, and really be present in the moment and take a deep breath. 3, 2, 1. Fully in. Out. Welcome back. Thank you. Thank you. So as the timer, I will be dictating the speeches, the table topics, and the evaluators. As far as the speeches, you will have 5 minutes. When 5 minutes arises, you will have the green. Can you please raise the green for me? Yes, the green light. After that, you got 6 minutes, then the yellow light will arise. After that, 7 minutes, red. For table topics, you have 1 minute green. At the 1 minute and 30 seconds, yellow. And then at the 2 minute mark, red. And as far as the evaluators, green at 2 minutes, yellow at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and then red at 3 minutes. And that's all I do. So just pay attention to your speeches, your filler words, and let's do it. Let's get it on. I'll hand it back to the lovely Yazmeen.
Thank you, Toastmaster Marcelo. Well, I don't know about everyone else, but I definitely needed that deep breath. I don't know what it looks like coming back from the long weekend for everyone else. But yeah, when I opened my email, I was like, maybe just one more day. So, okay. The second reason that vulnerability is just so important is personal growth. Really just confronting your fears and limitations is just the first step to self-discovery and really figuring out what steps you need to take to become a better you and become the person you want to be. Because really at the end of the day, like we can all be a better version of ourselves, no matter how awesome we are, just saying. But all right, for our first speaker, I would like to welcome up someone who is presenting this speech for a second time. We're really glad to hear, we're really excited to hear it as she is getting ready for her insurance conference very soon. So join me in welcoming Toastmaster Dana Robinson.
For those of you who are listening to this for the second time, I thank you many times over. I was supposed to have chocolate peas for Penwell Law with me tonight, but they did not get shipped in time. So the Tuesday after next, I'll be back with chocolate for everyone as a reward for listening to this for the second time. As Yazmeen said, I'm presenting this at an insurance conference. It's a panel for insurance agency owners. So what I'm going to ask you to do tonight is please just play along like you're an insurance agency owner. Raise your hand, interact with me however you find the most fun or entertaining. It's just pretend. And with that, I will, before I get started, I'm going to use a term a lot tonight, a producer. It's really just a salesperson for an insurance agency. So I wanted to give you a little bit of context. If you're insurance agency owners, you would know that, but you might not all be insurance agency owners. So with that, I will get started. How many of you are insurance agency owners? Wonderful. And how many of you like your agency losing money? That's about what I thought. So how many of you have independent producers working for you, bringing in accounts? That's a lot of you. That's most of you. And how many of you are sure that you own the business they're bringing in, that you own those accounts? If you're not certain, it matters, and I will tell you why in just one second. May I have the clicker? Thank you. I'm going to try and exhibit fortitude tonight and keep going, even though I forgot my clicker. And that it's not working. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have you fill out a couple of questions to give you some context for what your current employment agreements may or may not say. And the reason that I want you to do this is because we're going to move forward with some strategies on how to make these employment agreements airtight. So those are the questions that you see on the screen, and I've left pads of paper and pens for you to fill out the answers to these questions. Before we get started on that though, I want to explain to you why it matters so much whether you own these books of business for your producers. And it matters for two big reasons. One, revenue. If you don't own their book of business, if it doesn't say that in their employment contract, it may not be true. And they may be able to walk out the door with a lot of your revenue. And that's already bad. But if you go to sell your insurance agency, they are going to base the purchase price on a multiple of revenue, which means that if the revenue walks out the door and it's $500,000 a year, that sucks. We already know that sucks. But if you go to sell your insurance agency and now you have to multiply $500,000 by 6 or 7 or 8 times, and you have to sell your insurance agency for that much less, well, that really sucks. So you want to know what your employment agreements say. And that's why I've come up with a couple of questions that are up on the slide above. And I want you to just take a couple of minutes and write down and get a feeling for what you think your current agreements say. I'll give you a minute to do that. Okay, is everybody ready? You filled out your answers? Okay, well, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to compare two different types of producer agreements, employment agreements, essentially. Now, the first time I started to put this presentation together, I brought to mind my dad, and I will share with you, he was an insurance agency salesman. So he would sell insurance policies. This is what he did for a living. And he was amazing. He could sell anything to anyone. I would listen to him on the phone and he would start picking up people's accents, like adopting their accents and not realizing he was doing it. So he was an amazing, amazing salesman, but he hated details. And my mom worked for him, taking care of all the details. So he would close a sale and he would basically throw a file at her and never look at it again. And she would take care of it. So she was the details person. Why does this matter? Well, because I'm trying to show you clauses from two different types of employment agreements, and I'm looking out at a sea of insurance agency owners, and I don't think any of you want me to read you these clauses. Am I right? Okay. All right. So what I'm basically going to go over next are the two different types of agreements. Assuming I can get the clicker to work. Thank you. Okay. So in the first example, we're going to go over, the agency actually does own the book of business. And the contract, and I will tell you first off, both of the contracts I'm going to go over with you tonight are actual contracts I've looked at this year with actual clients. So, and they are very different. You'll see why in a minute. In the first example of an insurance agency owned employment agreement, it says, the agent is going to come in. They're going to solicit business, right? They're going to bring business in. Then it says the agency owns all the accounts that the producer brings in. They can't leave with any of them. On top of that, there's a 2-year non-solicitation provision. So they can't try and poach those clients when they go somewhere else. Not only that, they can't try and poach any clients that were there before. Like, let's say somebody left, but they had contact with them or they prospected them in the 2 years before they left. They can't take the old accounts either, because maybe you're going to try and claw those back, right? We're always trying to grow our businesses. And then third, it says that they can't take future clients. I will tell you, that's a tough sell in a North Carolina court. They don't like that. You could try for it. That's what's in this actual agreement. Okay. Would you mind moving to the next slide? My clicker is not working. Okay, in the next example, the producer actually owns the accounts. They own the business that they are bringing in. And that's established in the first clause. It says that the producer, is and will remain the owner of those accounts. There's a catch. You're putting a lot of resources into them, right? So they can't just walk away scot-free. They have to pay a 67.5% termination fee based on the last 12 months of commissions. So they have to come up with that through a business loan or whatever they need to do. And then there's also a non-solicitation clause. So they're not going to be able to go solicit your remaining accounts. So those are two very different types of employment agreements. How many of you feel like you know which type of employment agreement you have in place right now? Let me tell you why that matters. I had a client this year who went to sell his agency. His producer had the second type of agreement, the one we just discussed. He lost $2 million, guys. Okay. And I know you're all afraid of bringing me your employment contracts and having me bill you hourly. I do not charge $2 million to fix an employment contract. So you will lose money if you don't fix this. May we move to the next slide? This just isn't working. Thank you. So the next thing we're going to move on to discuss is state laws, because this is another avenue where you may lose money. Why? Keystone has franchisees in 17 different states. Every one of those states applies the laws differently. And you may be wondering, well, what is a restrictive covenant? And it basically has two components, a non-compete and a non-solicitation. I feel like you all understand the non-solicitation part. That's where we don't go and we don't poach customers from our old employer, right? Non-compete means that person can't go down the street and work for an agency like yours. So that's pretty harsh, right? Because what if you need to part ways? What if things aren't going well? It's not a good personality fit. You're really keeping them from getting another job. So moving on, I said before that we're going to actually compare a couple of states' laws. I will start with Illinois, and I will ask you, do you think that they enforce restrictive covenants? Okay, well, everyone's sort of right, because Illinois enforces restrictive covenants if the person earns enough. So the threshold is $75,000 for a non-compete. And that's where you say you can't go to another business and you can't work for that other business. You're really tying this person up. You're really preventing them from getting another job. That's harsh. And then the floor for a non-solicitation, $45,000 is less, right? Because you're just saying, don't go poach my customers and also don't go poach my employees. But we don't have enough time to talk about that provision tonight, but you can always email me and ask. So going back to the different thresholds, if you meet the thresholds, does that mean that you can use any kind of restrictive covenant you want in the agreement? No, it still has to be reasonable. And what this typically comes down to, whether you're in Illinois or any other state, is that it has to be tailored narrowly to protect a legitimate business interest. So Illinois starts with a floor and then they move over to reasonableness. Because there are franchisees in 17 different states, I want to pivot to North Carolina to give you an example of how a different state handles this. North Carolina doesn't have these kinds of floors. They just strictly look at reasonableness. So they're going to take a look at your agreement and they're going to ask, is it reasonable as to time, as to territory, and as to the scope of the restrictions? Why does this matter? In both Illinois and North Carolina, you can end up with unenforceable agreements, which means, again, you're back to losing $2 million when you try and sell that business, right? Or to go back to Illinois for just a second, they actually have civil penalties. If you're trying to tie up an employee who makes less than those thresholds, less than the $75,000, less than the $45,000, $5,000 in civil penalties for trying to do that. It's against public policy in Illinois. What if you try to do it again? $10,000 for every repeat violation. So and that's over the course of 5 years. So let's say you have 10 bad employment agreements over the course of 5 years. Now you're looking at the initial penalties. You're looking at the repeat penalties. You could be at $250,000. And I don't even charge $250,000 to revise your employment contract. So again, you're losing money for no reason. These things can really be tightened up and you can make them airtight and you can safeguard your agency that you're going out there every day hustling for, right? So back to North Carolina. So we had time, territory, scope of restrictions. As to time, typically in North Carolina, if the time restriction says they can't compete for 6 months to 3 years, that will generally be upheld. However, once you start getting to 5 years, presumptively unreasonable. I mean, can you imagine somebody saying that you can't go get another job in Mecklenburg County for 5 years for a similar employer? And it could be even worse because this goes into territory. some companies have a national presence, right? But what if you only worked in Mecklenburg County? What if they're now saying you can't get a job anywhere in the United States? What are you going to move your family to Mexico? Like it's just too harsh. So courts don't like to enforce that. And we think of that as overreaching. And when you're overreaching, the courts are not going to want to enforce that. And it's the same as to the scope of the activities, right? So you have someone who's working as an insurance salesman. It should prevent them from working as an insurance salesman, right? What if they develop a burning desire to be a janitor? If you say they can't go be a janitor at another insurance agency, you have reached too far. And the courts are going to say no, because what? Why? You're not protecting your legitimate business interest, are you? You're overreaching. So for North Carolina, there's a couple of other nuances. I know I'm running out of time, but I will just tell you that back in March, Wake County Superior Court came out with an opinion that said they do not like the phrase directly or indirectly. Let me put this into context for you. If you say you may not directly or indirectly compete with me, no one knows what that means, including the North Carolina courts. And they're sick of it. They're sick of it being in these contracts. And they pointed out no less than 5 other North Carolina cases where they have shot this down. And they said, drafters be warned, which is how judges talk. So drafters be warned. If you're in North Carolina and you're walking into this court and you've got a 5-year non-compete and your documents littered with directly and indirectly, I mean, you've already made them mad. The chances that your agreement's going to be enforceable just keep going down. And why? You could have fixed it. You could have taken it to your corporate counsel, or you could have taken it to us, and we would have fixed it, and it wouldn't have cost you $250,000, and it wouldn't have cost you $2 million. But that's what it might cost you eventually in the long term. Play for the long game. I'm going to wrap up now. The last thing I kind of want to tell you is that the Federal Trade Commission does want to ban non-competes. Probably everybody, most US workers are going to be excited about this. Most small business owners are not excited about this. Why does it matter to you? Well, it goes back to the idea of penalties. So if you continue to have employment agreements in place and they're in violation of the FTC after they come out with these regulations, not only are they not going to be enforceable, but you could be facing penalties. So again, it's a theme, it's you're losing money. And why? It doesn't take that much money to fix these agreements. And a lot of states are taking a similar approach. New York may end up in basically having parallel legislation to the FTC by the end of the year. So moving forward, what you need to do, whether you're in touch with us or you're in touch with your own corporate counsel, is make sure that your agreements remain current, because what's enforceable today could be unenforceable tomorrow. And I can tell you, if we've already written your employment agreement or we've already fixed it once, we're going to reach out to you and say, we want to make a couple of little tweaks to make sure that this remains enforceable. For example, Illinois, I know in 2027 that earnings threshold is going to go up over $75,000. If I have an Illinois client with an employment agreement, I'm going to say, we need to either bump up all these salaries, or you need to acknowledge that this is unenforceable and you could be facing penalties. You need to have that relationship with your corporate counsel so that you can make these agreements airtight. You can keep the money where it belongs, which is in your business. I want to thank you all for your time tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Right. Thank you so much, Dana. That was wonderful. So just to move back on to our theme of the day of the strength and vulnerability. The next reason that vulnerability is so important when, considering just growth and wanting to be a better person is it really allows for empathy and understanding. It just creates an environment where other people can support you and kind of relate. I know I can be definitely a offender here, but I feel like sometimes, especially in the period when I am in my life, either you don't want to talk to your family and your friends about certain things because one, you're embarrassed, or two, you're like, oh, well, they have their own stuff going on. They have their own problems. And you'll soon find that when you do open up to those people that care about you, 9 times out of 10, that's not the case at all. Like, of course, they have things going on, but you really opening up in that way makes them feel like they can also open up in that way, whether it's something small, like, oh my gosh, my boss really made me mad today, or something bigger, like something you're going through in life. In addition, I just feel like the social media landscape that we now live in kind of gives to this picture perfect life that everyone is living that's completely manufactured. So I feel like we just really kind of have to keep ourselves in the reality of things at times. But enough of that. Our next speaker is one of our very well-seasoned Toastmasters who I really enjoy hearing speak. So I'm looking forward to what he shares today. Please join me in helping Toastmaster Jamie Richardson.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, and good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I'm going to put the clicker over here. They say there's no manual for parenting, but that isn't true. There's literally thousands of books on parenting. What is true is that parenting is a series of choices that we make every day. We can choose to be active players in helping our kids develop independence and confidence. It's not always easy. We'll make mistakes. We'll get distracted. We'll give bad advice. What's most important is that we give our kids the space and time for their own natural development to occur, and that we give them a toolkit to help navigate the world effectively. I am in the process of raising 3 kids. I've learned some rules along the way, and tonight I'm here to share some of those rules for raising kids right. Rule 1, beware the screens. Now, this isn't a novel view. Tons of research has shown the negative impact that social media, video games can have on a kid's development, on their self-esteem. I'm here to tell you it's really, really important and also really hard. My kids have their screen time controlled. They often feel like they're missing out on stuff that their friends are experiencing, or that their social life will implode because they don't know the latest TikTok dance. But once they get started down that path, it gets really addictive really quickly. The one and only experience we've had with one of our kids pathologically lying to us was when our son would go to his friend's house, play video games literally all day long, and then come home and tell us that he'd been doing something entirely different, playing outside, getting his steps in. It was a painful lesson learned for all of us. Rule 2, say yes to activities. This goes along with rule 1. Often the reason people or kids spend so much time on screens is because their parents are busy. And I get it. Sometimes I get home from work, all I want to do is sit in front of the TV. But this rule says that I must say yes. My daughter comes and says she wants to play make-believe in her Lego city. She's showing me that she can build worlds. She can tell stories. She can solve conflicts. When my son comes and tells me he wants to play soccer, it's because he's got some new skill he learned and he wants to, or he's learning how and looking for feedback. Investing in that type of free play is critical to developing your kids' life skills. Rule 3, raise independent thinkers. Now, I like to call this helicopter parenting. But in my version, I fly my kids in a helicopter to the middle of nowhere and tell them to figure out how to get home on their own. Now, that's an exaggeration, but this rule is all about raising problem solvers. To use a math analogy, as a parent, I want to give my kids the formulas to make good life choices, not be a calculator that gives them all the answers. A common situation in our household is our kids will come and tell us they're bored. Instead of telling them what to do, we ask them to work together, come up with some ideas. Better yet, make up the rules to some new game, and then we'll help them bring that to life. Invariably, they're all having fun in no time. Rule 3, let them solve their own conflicts, whether with siblings or with friends. Learning how to negotiate disagreements and hurt feelings is critical. If kids don't learn how to compromise, if they always get their way, they'll be ill-equipped to interact in the world. If they don't learn how to deal with disappointment, they'll give up way too easily and they'll never build long-lasting relationships. And it can be hard. As a parent, it's tempting to want to swoop in and solve all your kids' problems, but that robs them of the very opportunity to build these coping skills. So when our youngest comes to us with some perceived injustice, We ask her to explain the problem, propose a solution, and then have her communicate that to her sibling. All of these rules can boil down to a few things: handling adversity, problem solving, communication, collaboration. If those sound familiar, it's because they're the same skills we all need to be successful in life. And increasingly, those skills that we need as adults are the ones that were hardwired into us as kids, and how we interact with people and how we learn how to navigate different situations. So by following these rules, I'm raising kids that are independent thinkers and have the fortitude to handle anything that life throws at them. Thank you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Jamie. The main thing that I heard in that, I liked your little math analogy, because one thing that makes me so happy, it warms my heart, is that I feel like we all remember in third grade when our teacher was like, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket every day. And I was like, now I'm like, we do. The next area where vulnerability is really just strength is leadership. Being vulnerable in a place of power really just nurtures trust, transparency, and collaboration, which are all things you need to be a great leader. I know personally for myself, my current boss, her and I have a great relationship. And outside of the fact that she guides me, she's also very real as far as her faults, her failures, things that she's still working on, and she's still working toward bettering. And it makes it feel more attainable to get to that next level, because she still has her issues and she's still working through them, and she's where she's at. And then finally, overcoming challenges. Really just recognizing your vulnerability just helps you grow in confronting challenges, learning, failing, and figuring out how to adapt when necessary. So finally, that's it for our prepared speeches, and we are going to move over to table topics. So with that, I'm going to introduce our table topics master, Mr. Elvis Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, and good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. I have the pleasure to be the table topics master tonight. And what that means is, as you have already seen, there were prepared speeches, and now this session is more for impromptu speaking to help us with speaking off the cuff without preparation. And for that, I'm going to ask questions, and I would like to have volunteers who have the fortitude to fight against their fears and come over here to challenge themselves and continue working towards their goals of becoming better speakers and better leaders. With that said, I would like to have the first volunteer. Who would like to volunteer? Natalia, come over here. Hello. I'm going to use one of the methods that I've seen our Toastmaster Andrea Chocolate Butterfly do, which is I'm going to ask you to select a number from 1 to 10. Number 5. Number 5, your question is, what advice would you give someone who is struggling to be vulnerable? What advice would you give someone who is struggling to be vulnerable?
Thank you. The question is, what advice would I give to someone that is struggling to be vulnerable? And if it happens with my friends, or I'm very close with my sister, so I always ask the question, what is a worst case scenario that would happen if you would be vulnerable with this person, with a boss that maybe tell you that you need to improve your speaking skills, what would be that worst case scenario? And imagine it and feel the emotions in your body. And then most of the time you realize that it ain't that bad after all. Once you go through and process the actual emotions that we are so scared to experience, we realize that those experiences are just part of life. So it makes us share something really tender on the inside that will help us relate to people and will make us feel more connected to that someone that you opened up. So next time when you're afraid to be vulnerable with your girlfriend, your mom, your sister, just think about what is the worst case scenario that would happen in here. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have another volunteer, please? Shannon, come over here. What? All right. What's your number from 1 to 10?
2.
All right. How do you think vulnerability can help build confidence? How do you think vulnerability can help build confidence?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and I'd like to thank you for all inviting me to this first presidential town hall meeting here in Charlotte. How does vulnerability increase confidence? Well, it goes back to my main platform. During the Cold War, we all know that we used the MAD plan to keep ourselves safe from the Soviet Union, mutually assured destruction. My plan, ladies and gentlemen, if elected, is to 1, change the title to Overlord, and 2, institute a constitutional amendment requiring the MATTER policy. MATTER, mutually assured destruction delivered by employees of retail. Ladies and gentlemen, my plan legally allows people who are front-facing customer service employees to legally and absolutely without any harm, foul, or fear of punishment to punch someone in the throat at least twice a year. Why do you say that? You say, wow, Shannon, they may get hurt. People will die. Yeah. We always talk about a more civil society, how our country is divided. How are we going to bring ourselves together? Ladies and gentlemen, the first 6 months, people are going to be wondering, have they used that first punch yet? That second 6 months, before people go into a restaurant, a store, or any kind of place that requires interactions with actual human beings and start showing their ass, they're going to be wondering, do they have a punch left? Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you tonight for thinking of me as your next president, king / overlord of the United States. And remember, matter is better because it relies on people's vulnerability. This area right here. Thank you, Mr. Tabletop Master.
I don't know how to call that. All right, so Next volunteer, please. Andrea. Is that your number? That's mine too. December 8th. Okay. Number 8 is how can we learn to embrace vulnerability and use it to our advantage? How can we learn to embrace vulnerability and use it to our advantage?
Last week, many of you know I was not here in person. I had to take a break. I was on my way here. It had nothing to do with the weather. It just was me. And in being vulnerable, I had no fortitude to get here. I had no strength. I had no push. But then I was accountable in that vulnerability. And I used it for my good. So I asked many of you questions about how to be positive and how to make things happen, right? It helped me. So every week I choose to be vulnerable. I choose to come in this place, whether I'm online or whether I'm in person, and just be Andrea. Yes, I'm the chocolate butterfly, but usually I'm just Andrea. And sometimes I hurt. Sometimes I cry. Had a birthday, don't know why. Know I look good, but I cried. So sometimes you're just in that place where you just have to let others know I need you. And thank you for being there for me, because that is how I gain strength every week. And I have not stopped coming back here, because every week I come, every time I speak, every time I smile at somebody else, I get a smile back, a hug back, a high five back, an encouragement back, to just keep pushing and to gain more fortitude to push forward and to gain that strength. So check on your people. Check on your people, because a lot of us that are strong, we're stubborn. We do not like telling people that we need help. But I have to say, my mom and my daughter, they got me through this weekend, because some things happened last week, actually on the way here, is why I wasn't here. And it hurt me to my core. And I was broken. And I had to stop and say, they're not being too positive. You need their strength today. So keep speaking your truth, because being vulnerable just may strengthen someone else. Back to you.
Any of the guests? Come over here. Excellent. What's your name again? Tom. Tom. What number? From 1 to 10? 2. Number 2. We already did that one.
I didn't hear it. 3.
3? Okay. What are some examples of how vulnerability has helped you in your life? What are some examples of how vulnerability has helped you in your life?
Well, for starters, it brought me here. I just recently moved here, and I don't have any friends, and my job is stressing me out. I didn't like to hear that I didn't do well at my speech. It upset me for a day, but then I figured this is a learning experience. I can go out, do something, get better at speaking, be a little bit more confident, maybe make some friends. So I think that it's helping me in bringing me here, and I think it's cool. I might stick around, but just in general, embracing that and not just telling myself I'm strong, and that I can actively go out and do things to make myself better. I don't have anything else. Thank you for having me.
You just made it. How we say is make it to the green. So he made it. Good job. Do we have time for another volunteer, Madam Toastmaster? Okay. So our time is over here for our table topic session. So with that, I would pass the control over to our Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Elvis. Just quickly, just to share in the theme. And again, we appreciate our guests always coming up to share and show fortitude in just answering one of these questions. But I'll say two places where I struggle with speeches, even though I'm the Toastmaster of the day. One, I don't even want to hear how many filler words I've used because I'm sure it's a ton. Somewhere I struggle. And number two, pauses. So whenever I go and look back, if I pause for 1 second, I think it's like 20 seconds in my head and it's really not. So something I'm still working on. It's a growing process. With that being said, I'm going to introduce our general evaluator who is going to evaluate the meeting as a whole, Toastmaster Kendall Rackley.
Good evening, Toastmasters and honored guests. I'm the general evaluator for today. So this is the other side of the meeting where instead of giving speeches, this is the evaluation period. So the general evaluator just evaluates the entire meeting. So in the back, if you notice me scribbling on my paper here, I've just been writing some notes, some good things that were done by everybody in the meeting. And then also making sure that the meeting runs promptly. There's a lot of energy. There's, a lot of good vibes going through the meeting. So that's what I'm evaluating tonight. And I don't know, do I get my report now or do I wait till after the evaluation? Okay. So right now I'm going to introduce the speech evaluators. And who's the first one? Vanessa. Toastmaster Vanessa.
Thank you so much. And thank you to our first speaker, Dana. Now, I did not have the privilege of hearing your first take of this speech, but you did such a great job of introducing the topic and what you were going to be covering that I felt like I was just along for the ride and I had no trouble following. So first of all, shout out to your really great opening and intro. And that's just one of a few really strong points about your speech that I do want to highlight tonight in my evaluation. You're a really strong icebreaker and connection to the audience. Your use of storytelling was really great. And then also your vocal variety. And I'll talk a little bit more about all three of those. And then, of course, highlight a few things to work on, but mainly want to spotlight those strong points of your speech. So whenever there's a Toastmaster who comes up to speak about a really specific topic, maybe something for work like you did tonight, it can be harder for us lay people in the audience to follow along. But what you did was really great. You asked the audience a question, and that's a classic icebreaker. A lot of speakers will say, who here has done XYZ? Who here knows about XYZ? Of course, you could also use that same approach with your actual insurance conference because it has the effect of making people feel more comfortable with you as their speaker, and it makes the speaker seem very relatable. So I think that that is not only something good for us Toastmasters who don't have the expertise that you do, but also for the professionals that you will be talking to at this insurance event. They'll just feel a little bit more welcomed and more comfortable, and it just sets a really good tone for your speech. So great job on that intro. Another thing that I liked, and this is very uncommon in technical or professional speeches, but you included a story. You included a story about your dad, who is an excellent salesman. And by including a story, you automatically woke up the audience just a little bit more than they already were. And something about storytelling, I think they've done studies that show telling a story can really make people learn even better than they otherwise would. And I thought your story about your family was just perfect. It was still professional. It related to the topic of this talk, but it just gave this humanizing effect to you as a speaker. You weren't just full of knowledge, but you were also a full person with an interesting background and an interesting family. Again, making your audience feel really connected to you as a speaker. And the third thing that really stood out, and this in particular was probably my favorite thing about your speech, and that is your use of vocal variety, and in particular, your phrasing. It is so common when us as speakers, we get up on stage and we feel maybe a bit nervous, and we might rush through our speeches or speak in too much of a monotone, and it sounds a little bit forced. But tonight you had great use of inflections, varying, going up and down. And that is how people naturally speak in conversation. So to give you an example, you might say, to illustrate my point about insurance, blah, 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 blah. And you can see my voice did a little up and down movement. And that's not a very good example, but that's sort of illustrating the technique that you used really well. And, you know, it aligns well with your use of another vocal variety technique, which is using a phrase to let the audience know what's coming next. And I sometimes think of these as trigger phrases. For instance, you might say, to illustrate my next point about this law, let me tell you about this. Or because of this thing that I've just been telling you about, this can happen, let me tell you more. Those sort of transitional phrases, for lack of a better word, those can be really helpful. And a lot of people skip over them because we're pressed for time, we're in a rush, and we forget to ease our audience into something that we're saying. And that feeds into a few areas of improvement. One area I thought of that you could work on is just having a little bit more background and a little bit more of a conclusion at the end of your speech. One phrase that I've heard can really help speakers is tell people what you're about to tell them, then go ahead and tell them, and then remind them of what you just told them. And it sounds a little bit cheesy, but I think it is good advice because especially with technical topics like yours, it's so easy to get into the weeds right away to save time. But then people are left thinking, I think I caught everything, but what were the three main points again? And so having the introduction, I'll cover this topic, I'll cover legal XYZ topic and this other topic, telling us about it like you did so well, and then just recapping. By the way, these are the three takeaways. If you forget everything else, remember these three. On those lines, another thing that you could think about is slowing down the pace just a tad. And I know this can be tricky when you have a timeline like you do in Toastmasters, but for your actual speech, I think you have maybe a little bit more room to work with. And you could probably slow down your pacing just a little bit more. And this is something I struggle with all the time. So do not feel bad if you end up going a little bit faster. But I find that having it in the back of my mind to over explain and stay on one point for longer, it does help me slow down just enough so people don't lose track and kind of lose me because I'm going right past them. Overall, once again, excellent speech, really great job. just a few little technical pointers there at the end. Another pointer before I forget might be if you are having any technical issues with your slides not advancing, happens to everyone. But one thing I heard once that I really like is someone will say, next slide, please. And that's it. It's so brief. It's so succinct. Next slide, please. And that's all you have to say. Don't feel too bad. Don't feel the need to apologize too much. It's not ultimately your fault. It should be the people setting up the technology that have done that for you because you're the speaker. So you are just focused on the message and you can just say, next, please. And with that, I just want to say once again, it was a pleasure listening to your speech tonight. And I really look forward to hearing how your insurance event goes and hearing more speeches from you as well. And I'll turn it back over to our general evaluator.
All right, thank you, Vanessa. So for Jamie's speech, I'm going to introduce Toastmaster Bill Fountain.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guest. Bill Fountain here. And Jamie, I love the speech. Being a granddad and of course parents of 3 kids, and now I got 6 grandkids. This is a great story about these actions that you were talking about, how to help in raising kids. I love your introduction because you set us up of why this is important. And then one of the things I like the most is that you listed these items and you categorized each one and about their actions. And the idea about the helicopter was great because I grew up in a day where you could run around in the woods and we were inventive. We did everything we wanted. It was just absolutely amazing that we could do. And there was hardly any restrictions. And we didn't have anything, like you're saying, screen time. So, and I know from watching my grandkids that that's something that I have to be cognizant. You know, I can't interrupt too much into my daughter's life as a grandfather, but at times you kind of want to do that. So I love the introduction. I like the way, like I mentioned, that you listed there. I suggest that you did stay around in this little area right here. I think you moved around a little bit, but I would suggest a little bit more of, I guess, exaggerated gestures, because I think that would help in some of the things, because I think it would give more emphasis on a particular item. And maybe just a tad of energy, just a tweak on the energy. And let's see what else I have on here on the forms. Let's take a look here. I like the way you covered the audience. You watched everybody, you looked at everybody, keeping an eye on them. So you knew what the audience expectations were, because you could see whether they're attention or not, because you were looking at them. And I mentioned about the inflection and exaggeration. And so I think you hit the mark on the persuasion, because you sold me on the idea of this ideas about limiting the screen time, get them out there, let them solve their own conflicts, and let them solve their problems. So thank you. I appreciate it. Who's next? Here we go. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Toastmaster Bill, for that. And are we doing the... Okay. Now we're going to do the timers report.
Thanks. Tremendous evening tonight. We have an amazing Toastmaster doing her thing and an amazing speeches also. Deanna, I apologize. I'm so sorry. I didn't know that your speech was supposed to be longer. So I was raising the colors before I was supposed to. So anyways, but you came in at 13 minutes and 52 seconds. So you did very well. Very good. Jamie, professional, you didn't get any colors. 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Natalia, you came in very clutch at 1 minute exact. Perfect. Shannon, you didn't even answer the question. Where did he go? Oh, there you are. But I love your energy and I love your message, brother. The passion behind your heart is truly inspirational. 2 minutes and 26 seconds. Andrea, Miss Chocolate Butterfly herself. Beautiful lady, you came in at 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Perfect. Tom, amazing, my brother. You came in at 57 seconds. Let me get it right. Kendall, no, I didn't get Kendall. I didn't do Kendall. That's Kendall right there. Yeah. Sorry, Kendall. Still love you. Vanessa. Where's Vanessa? Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Vanessa. You did amazing with your evaluation, 6 minutes and 20 seconds. And Sir Bill, you came in perfectly right on the dot at 2 minutes. Perfect. Everybody did amazing. Congratulations. Marcelo, yes.
Marcelo?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Toastmaster Marcelo. And I'm going to do general evaluation. Okay. All right. As you all can tell, this is my first time being general evaluator because I don't know the order of things. But I think we had an amazing meeting tonight. As Marcelo said, there was a lot of energy. We started on time, so that wasn't timing wasn't an issue. So Marcelo and Nick, both of you guys brought in a lot of energy. Dana, Dana, I thought your speech was even better this time than it was the first time. Yazmeen, I liked your theme of vulnerability and strength, and I think you've been doing a great job as the Toastmaster for us tonight. Jamie, I thought your speech was very insightful for a future that I may soon see myself. Natalia, I think you had a great presence. You kind of felt out, the area up here. You weren't kind of just stiff. You were kind of moving around. So I thought that was great. Shannon, you gave us a lot of energy, which was great. But I mean, you have an amazing stage presence. I mean, it's not just the energy, but you really know how to kind of fill the room with your voice and with your presence, which is a great talent to have. Andrea, I thought your message was very heartfelt and very needed, as all of us have some strong friends who definitely don't show the vulnerability. So I appreciate that message. And Tom, I thought that your message was very motivating and encouraging because it takes a lot of fortitude to come up here and give your table topic speech for the first time. So you did great. And I will pass it back to grammarian.
Thanks for using the word. You got it in at the end. First off, I appreciate the fortitude all of you had tonight for coming up and overcoming your fear of speaking. You did an excellent job. Everything I heard tonight mostly consisted of some and. So a couple of you use those words a lot to begin your sentences. As professionals, we try to remove like, so, and at the beginning of sentences, so that we can remove those filler words and sound more professional when we're talking. So just a heads up and watch out for those next time. I heard a couple of you use fortitude. Thank you for stepping up and using the challenge. Please try to use the word of the day every time you come up and do Toastmasters. And with that, I will hand the microphone over to Yazmeen.
Thank you so much. So I know we're short on time, so I'm just gonna wrap the meeting up with a little bow. Vulnerability truly is strength. It helps create and deepen connections. It empowers you to grow, and it really just is a doorway to a profound human experience. Don't forget to sign up for roles next week, week after that, week after that. And with that, I'll pass it back over to our presiding officer, Dr. Eric Laxer.
Guys, that may have been applause for me, but how about applause for Yazmeen for an outstanding job. Thank you, Yazmeen, and thank you to everybody who came up here and spoke, especially taking roles on for the first time. I have just a few orders of business to take care of before we conclude our meeting. The first is we try to have everybody speak who attends the meeting. And almost the only person who didn't speak is our newest member. So please join me in giving a warm new members welcome to Martin Griswold. And you can share just a couple of words if you want. You can maybe tell us why you're wearing that splint or something else.
Sure. So my name is Martin from Canada. And the reason I'm wearing this, I had a tournament over in Chicago. I play soccer as well. Had a tournament in Chicago, and we're playing first round friendly. And I go to make a tackle. I break my fall with my wrist, and my wrist kind of just bends back. So it's been swollen last 3 days or so. So I've been wearing this. Now I can actually like hold stuff. Before any movement I did came with a lot of pain. So that's the reason I'm wearing this. The guy at CVS told me it's about a 5 to 6 month process, which I'm not looking forward to. I play a bit of pickleball here and there now, and I obviously won't be able to do that now. So yeah, that's the reason for that.
Thank you. For those of you who play sports, the injury rate at Toastmasters is much lower. So if you're considering, this is a really good option. I'm going to ask David, who's online, to maybe just share a few words. I think it's important when we have a lot of guests here to maybe understand the value of coming to these meetings. And all of us have our own personal journey. I'm asking David for several reasons, but he's one of our past presidents. He has basically climbed the ladder of leadership in Toastmasters. And also through Toastmasters, he has climbed the ladder at his place of employment. So David, can you speak maybe for just a minute or so, just share the value that Toastmasters has brought to your life and your career?
Yes, thank you, Eric. Like everybody here, I started at Toastmasters to overcome my fear of public speaking. I used to sit in the back of a room and have my head down so the speaker wouldn't call on me. And now I'm at the point where I won't shut up. But the great thing about Toastmasters, and I know many of the guests might not believe this, is the public speaking aspect is so easy. You're going to be speaking in no time. If you come week after week, you're going to be very comfortable like the people you saw today. But Toastmasters is also about leadership, getting into leadership. There's a lot of different opportunities. I personally started as treasurer there at Queen City, went to president, area director, division director. Now I'm part of the trio in the district, which is the top 3 leaders. And my aspirations is to be president of Toastmasters International in 2030. It is a process. You don't do anything overnight, but it translated, like Eric said, at work. Since I started at leadership in Toastmasters, I've been promoted twice, and it's a 52% income increase for me. Our previous district director, she had been in Toastmasters a while. She said that she had been promoted 7 times, and it was like a 420% increase just because your companies realize your leadership opportunities and you're able to speak and train. So Toastmasters is more than speaking, so I encourage everybody to be involved, but don't just think about speaking, think about the leadership. Back to you, Eric. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So one of the traditions we do at our meetings is we let our guests just say a few words and share some of their thoughts on their experiences tonight. And so I know we're running out of time, but I think that's a very valuable part of the evening for everybody. So I'm just going to go around the room and ask each of you just to give us 30 seconds, 45 seconds at most.
Yeah, for me, as my first time here at Toastmasters, it's pretty interesting to hear people, one like Dana, correct? She got to speak about her professional life, and other people came up, talked about their professional, personal. Tom, you talked about your career move. I'm going through the same thing. I just thought it was pretty interesting and cool to hear so many people's different stories. So that's what I had to.
Hey, I just wanted to say thanks for everyone who got up there, and I know it's really hard to come up with things to say like I'm trying to do right now. Yeah, I just appreciate also getting off the screen time myself, seeing people in person, because I work from home. I go to the office 1 day a week. So this is a nice opportunity to see people and witness like some in-person work outside of the employment extracurricular activities. So yeah, thanks.
I just want to say thank you guys for allowing guests to come out to these events and these group meetings. I like you guys have a very comfortable feel. Guests new or have been here for a while. My other observation, I would love to break like the whole topic was today about vulnerability. I'd love to break the ice. I thought that was a really cool unique opportunity to kind of just like shoot on the fly of what you wanted to talk about. So that's my goal for the next one, is break the ice.
I think the topic for today was pretty good for all the guests here. This is my second time. I think my third time around, I'll finally make it up to the podium for a table topic. It's a little nervous standing in front of everybody, but I like how at least twice a meeting, they put the microphone in my hand and make me talk.
Dana, this is the second time I've heard your speech, and I thought you're doing a great job. So hopefully I can hear the third time, but you're doing really well. And Jamie, your speech as well was really interesting. So thank you.
Yeah, so I thought the keyword vulnerability was very eye-opening. This was my first meeting here. I just moved to Charlotte. I work remote, and my roommate's gone most of the day. So 16 hours a day, I'm just talking to the wall. I'm in my room, I'm at my desk. And so I think it was good to come out, and that key point really hit the nail on the head. It's not easy to come out, speak in public. So a lot of respect to you. Me being my first time, I wasn't even considering going up there. And he walked up right away, put his hand up. So no respect there.
Every meeting I come here, I love that there is a subject about mindset. We have done the previous meeting. We also talked about mindset. It was really a great topic, vulnerability. Now, I love the mixture. We have the guidance on future generations, how to bring back the foundation for the society. We have some crazy talks at times. So I'm not pointing at anyone specific. So I love the energy. I would discourage the violence though in retail highly. So, but I really enjoy it. I'll be back.
Thank you. I really liked this. I was pretty scared to come here tonight. I had no idea what the vibe was going to be like, but I like that it's a little bit more candid. You can talk about a variety of different things, like the parenting talk, like made me think like I wish my parents heard that. So I like that it's a good mix of people. I feel like people have different priorities. I think it's cool that you can just come here and like practice your thing for work. It's like a good tool to have. Yeah, so I like it. I'll be back.
Shannon, you're like a guest-ish though. So we were really just, exactly. So I want to close with three comments. One is for all of those of you who spoke, one of you said, you get to hold a microphone and you really get to see that by practicing what we're all doing here, it becomes easier. And I promise you, the majority of us, when we started here, felt exactly like you do if you're nervous and anxious, but that eventually goes away. Second thing is, if you don't believe me, go to our YouTube channel, Queen City Toastmasters on YouTube. We're going to upload the meeting tonight or tomorrow morning. You're going to see how you were able to stand up and come across as somebody who was very comfortable speaking in front of others. I'm going to leave you with a quote from George Bernard Shaw. Life is not about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. And by coming here, you give yourself an opportunity to create yourself. So please either come back and visit us as a guest again, or let us know you're interested in joining our club. And either way, we look forward to seeing you all the next time. And with that, I will call tonight's meeting to a close.